Daniel chapter 9 contains one of the most significant and foundational prophetic passages in all of Scripture. There are 31,124 verses in the whole Bible, and 8,352 of them relate to prophecy. That's 27% of Scripture. Obviously, prophecy is important, and yet I would admit that prophecy is often difficult to understand, and we're going to see that in this lesson. Now, in this lesson, the first part of the lesson deals with Daniel's prayer, and it's a magnificent prayer. The second part deals with this foundational prophetic passage, and it's excellent as well, but it is more difficult to understand than the first part. And I want to warn you that this lesson is long and heavy, but so significant. You may want to divide it up into two different lessons if your group has the time to do that, if you're studying with a group. Now, in the second part of the lesson, the prophetic part, I have provided more notes. Experts are chiming in. I've looked to find the best people that I can to guide us through this text. And there's more guidance than in other lessons. But even with that guidance, you may find yourself in the prophetic part of the lesson bogged down a little bit, possibly overwhelmed or frustrated. I want to encourage you, just don't go there. If you don't understand something, just move ahead. In time, it's going to fit together, and if you're with a group, you'll learn from one another. It's verses 24 through 27 that are this wonderful foundation for prophecy, and you're going to be able to, as you understand it, to build on this foundation as you study the more prophecy that we're going to see in the lessons to come in this last part of the memoirs of Daniel. Now remember, when you study prophecy, each prophetic passage, each time you understand something, it's like a puzzle piece that you add to this great puzzle to help you understand God's sovereignty and what it is that He's doing in the world. To culminate biblical history. He knows what He's doing, and prophecy really does help us understand what He's doing. There are 4 verses here that are rich, deep, and somewhat mysterious. Godly scholars also don't always agree on what these verses mean. And just so you know, I want you to be aware that I am interpreting them using what we call the literal method. That means that unless there's a different reason, I'm interpreting them literally, not in a wooden way, but what that means is I'm interpreting them in the way that I believe the original author would have meant them for the original audience. And you're going to find that in prophecy as well, there are often pictures that the author will use to help describe something. And we have to figure out, did that author mean that to be interpreted literally for the original audience and then for us? Or is it a picture of something that represents something else? So all of these things go into our interpretation. It's important to be consistent, but I do want you to realize that godly scholars disagree. And you may disagree with if you're studying with a group, you may disagree with what others come up with, and that's okay. It's just we need to disagree agreeably and attempt to learn from one another. I hope that we all can agree, though, that fulfilled prophecy helps us know that the Bible is true. You're going to come across in the lessons that are ahead as we finish up the study of Daniel quite a few fulfilled prophecies. And in fact, there are hundreds and hundreds of fulfilled prophecies in Scripture that were fulfilled exactly the way that the text says they would happen. Scripture has 100% accuracy rate, which shows us that indeed it is divine. Now, we also need to remember when we're studying prophecy that we aren't studying it in order to come up with predictions, and that's going to be tempting because this section that you'll be studying, Daniel 9, is a timetable that lays out when God is doing what. But we're not to come up with specific predictions, specific assumptions about when the world will end, or what's all of that kind of thing. But it does help us know generally what's going on, which helps us understand the sovereignty of God. The real incentive as we study is to live well, to love and to have courage in the world in which we find ourselves.